Today we'll be discussing Kill Bill. How do you go about tackling this particular revenge tale? Let's go chronologically and discuss the characters as we go. Kill Bill is Tarantino's fourth film and was so long it was split into two separate releases for theaters, though it is clearly considered to be one movie by the director, so don't make the mistake of thinking them as two, which I found is often the case with people for some reason. Kill Bill is what I like to consider the beginning of Tarantino's mainstream period, if you will. His movies became much more focused in their sense of storytelling, but also much grander, bigger budget epics, leaving his more nuanced indie beginnings behind, fully embracing his name as a powerhouse of cinema. It may be funny to consider works such as Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction more subtle and restrained by comparison, but in a way they are. Kill Bill would be the first of Tarantino's films to be a full homage to a few particular styles of filmmaking and wholly embracing what it is, whereas his previous films combined elements of certain types of films while being something more unique. I suppose one could suggest these later films are less impressive this way, but I would disagree. Tarantino seems to wish to make the type of films he loves to watch and bring them to life in a much bigger way. Kill Bill is where he lets loose and just has fun. This flick is a classic revenge tale done in the style of classic kung fu films, with elements of samurai flicks and anime thrown in. We start with our protagonist, the bride/Beatrix Kiddo, played by Uma Thurman, on a rampage of vengeance, hunting down the members of the Deadly Viper assassination squad. It turns out the bride was one of their members, but had decided to get out of the assassination game and lead a normal life. Bill, their leader, and his gang murdered everyone at their wedding reception, leaving her for dead and taking the life of her unborn child. It's no wonder she's a little angry about this. I've mentioned this before, but I suspect I'll continue to see this throughout these reviews, but I've noticed the theme of morality comes up again and again in Tarantino's movies. The first fight we witness is between the bride and Evita Green, though it is interrupted when Green's daughter comes home from school. We witness our first bit of stylized kung fu action combined with a dark sense of humor. We also see that both characters are more complicated than originally suspected. Green seems to be attempting to live a normal life as well, with her husband and child in quiet suburbia. This is an interesting correlation to the life the bride wished she had had before the attack by the Vipers. The bride even suggests this when mentioning the age her daughter would have been had she had lived. Green attempts to beg for forgiveness by using her daughter as leverage. We learn here that the bride may not be without any sense of compassion, but she states pretty clearly her desire for vengeance, which can only lead to Green's death. And then it does. The scene in which the bride explains to Green's daughter the nature of revenge has always left it open, I think, to an easy possibility for a sequel. We then follow the bride to Japan, where she seeks out a sword forged by the great Hattori Hanzo in order to be best prepared for the rest of her combat. One wonders why she just can't get any other sword or variety of weapon, but it is stated that this man does make basically the best swords in the world. He has sworn to give up creating swords of destruction, but his pupil, Bill, must have caused some kind of great dishonor, which convinces him to make his best sword, if it will help her, kill Bill. Next we are introduced to the next enemy to be dispatched, with this one given much more backstory for some reason. In several pretty cool and disturbingly beautiful anime sequences, we are introduced to Oren Shi, a girl whose family was brutally murdered when she was young, leading her on the path to gain revenge, become one of the best assassins in the world, and eventually the head of the Japanese mafia, the Yakuza. Why isn't there an anime about this character yet? We learn that Oren is ruthless and sensitive about her family history. The next sequence is one of the most well-known parts of the film, which is essentially a long, bloody battle at Oren's club with the bride versus her various henchmen, the Crazy 88 and her lieutenants. In terms of sword fighting, there is some great camera work, music, and over-the-top gore effects. It all culminates with the duel with Oren, which is slower and more serene than the carnage that preceded it. In her final moments, Oren shows that she has some respect for the bride. Despite her cruel nature, we learn enough about Oren's backstory to at least understand her way of life. Like Green before her, this deadly assassin still retains some essence of her humanity. The bride then seeks out Bill's brother Bud, who also seems to be living a life of simplicity. He hasn't even really bothered to keep up with his swordplay. He prefers guns. This is fitting, as Bud is the most straightforward of the assassins. He doesn't mince words or put on extra trappings. He may still be a criminal of sorts, but he just seems to want to be left alone. He also voices what the other assassins are all thinking, that the bride really is justified in her quest for revenge, but then pointing out that she has done enough terrible things herself to deserve death. Of all Bill's cohorts, Bud actually comes the closest to killing the bride, burying her alive. It is interesting that he didn't kill her, though, and even gives her a flashlight. Now, this may be a stretch, but I always felt Bud may have suspected the bride could escape and subconsciously welcomed it. The bride does escape, of course, by repeatedly punching her way through the coffin at close range. Her ability to perform this act is introduced by flashback, as seen with the younger bride and Bill, beginning her journey as an assassin. She is trained under the intense fighter Pai Mei to improve her skills after many painful montages. Offering to pawn her sword to another assassin, played by Daryl Hannah, Bill's right-hand woman, Bud is murdered by her for killing a rival, something she had been aching for years. And Daryl Hannah is particularly evil in this movie. She gets what she asks for, though, in the most intense one-on-one fight in the film. Things seem to be pretty even, until Hannah reveals she murdered Pai Mei, declaring in classic over-the-top fashion, "I killed your master," reminiscent of any old martial arts flick. He plucks out Hannah's other eye and leaves her for dead. This leads the bride to finally tracking down Bill. She's ready to kill him when it is revealed that the bride's daughter was alive this whole time and being raised by Bill, who is already grooming her to be an assassin in his own subtle way, having her watch classic kung fu flicks which are probably not suitable for a 4-year-old. So overwhelmed with emotion, the bride spends time with her daughter and confronts Bill, verbally rather than physically. Bill explains that he acted irrationally and shouldn't have done what he did, regretting it due to his love for her, explaining he acted out of passion and jealousy. He does offer a suggestion, though, that the bride may not have been able to live a normal life, since she is a killer at the core of her being. The bride seems to acknowledge this tearfully, but insists that she would have made it work for her daughter and would not allow Bill to have her. There is a quick fight, ending with Bill's death, with the 5-palm exploding heart technique, a technique reminiscent of Kenshiro's "ah-ta-ta-ta", but with less outward explosions. The significance of this attack is that Pai Mei never taught anyone, even Bill. I'm getting the sense that not many people really like Bill. So our villain dies in a rather bittersweet way, and the bride and her daughter begin a life of new possibility. I love Kill Bill. It's easily one of my favorite Tarantino films, and one of my favorite movies of all time. I actually believe this was my first introduction to Tarantino, and I find myself drawn to his other work after this. This is a fun blend of comic-level, over-the-top action with some great choreography, sound design, lighting, and editing. Uma Thurman gives my favorite performance from her and showcases Tarantino's ability to write strong female characters. The bride is portrayed as a human being, a full-fledged person who is capable of performing badass feats, but also is often very vulnerable. Much like Tarantino's other films, in addition to being a big homage to kung fu films and samurai epics, Kill Bill is a story of revenge sprinkled with the fine line of morality. Bill makes a comment to the bride comparing her situation to that of Superman, in that she could pretend to lead a normal life, but would ultimately give in to her violent criminal nature, her true self. We certainly see the bride is adept at killing, and Bill doesn't seem to think she is capable of changing, what he perceives at least, to be who she really is. Though the bride herself doubts this, and we do see her killing people constantly, she is motivated by something else. In a flashback, we see upon discovering her pregnancy, she gained a realization about her lifestyle. As is common in many mothers, her child's life became more important than her own. Whatever reckless decision she had made to get herself into this lifestyle, she believes her daughter deserves to be born with a clean slate, as she states. This implies that she feels she has been corrupted by Bill's charismatic influence and does not want the same for her daughter. She's done many bad things, but I doubt she started out that way. Her daughter simply brought her back to a clearer perspective on the life she was leading. She was willing to change to give her daughter a chance. Despite the campy nature of many of the performances, Tarantino somehow manages to make these characters seem like people. He's just really good at finding that bizarre balance. All of them have such a hint of good, except maybe Daryl Hannah's character. That woman was just evil. Once again, like many of the protagonists in the previous films we've discussed, the bride may not be a great person, but she's much better than any of her counterparts. I love a good revenge tale, and I suppose this one is my second favorite. Others include The Count of Monte Cristo and Oldboy, which is my favorite movie of all time. The soundtrack is awesome, the story is epic, and the dialogue is loaded with fun. There are some things that could have been added perhaps. I've always wanted to learn a little bit more about these characters and their origins, particularly Bill, who is perhaps one of the nicest bad guys ever, strangely. He's so charming, yet despite his calm, you can sense some real cold, direct evil underneath. I always felt this story was suited for an anime prequel or spin-off or something. I think it could really work well. Tarantino would have to be involved, of course. Even so, I think it's very good at what it's trying to do, creating a wholly unique and enjoyable experience. You have to get behind its quirkiness and camp, but if you do, you'll be witnessing pure Tarantino at his best. And I leave this movie with an A+. Next time we talk about Death Proof. That should be interesting.